So I almost hit transition without letting you know this time, and I almost got you on a good, good soundbite. But welcome everybody to the Alternative Blacks podcast. Sample game time.
Oh, we're getting right into the sample games.
You wanted this as quick as possible, and that was the quickest I could do.
All right, quick sample game today. 1976, Life on Mars by Dexter Wansel.
Maybe got back.
There you got that. Let's see. Oh, shoot, I can't share audio.
Oh my gosh, and I am gonna ruin the whole broadcast by doing
The
this.
whole broadcast.
Oh my god. And everyone's gonna see that I really don't know what I am doing. Alright, you should be able to share the screen.
Gotta love it. What you drinking, Ty?
You gotta cue her up. I am drinking Glow by Triple Bottom Brewing. It's a smoked Helles lager. It's called Smoky and Bright. Let's see, a bright, crisp lager with a touch of smoke for the best campfire vibes. It's bigger than beer. We believe that everyone in every community should have the opportunity to craft something great. That's why we're a fair chance brewery, creating meaningful living wage jobs for people that are traditionally excluded from the mainstream economy. Plus, 100% of our electricity comes from wind. And our beer, we brew it to be balanced and flavorful for everyone to enjoy.
Wow.
Triple Bottom by far has the best message in Philadelphia. While it might not hit the top of my list as best brewery, their mission, undeniably the best. This beer is absolutely wonderful. Before I even take a sip here, I could tell you because I sat down and tried it before I before I bought it.
Taking a peek in the veil there.
And it's so good. It's so smoky. And it's a wonderful light Helles. I believe it's only sitting at around like 4%, which I think is 5.3. My bad. It was the amber that I think might have been a 4%, which I think you would have loved. I tried a little bit of that, and it had pumpernickel and molasses notes in it.
Okay.
Fucking great.
Was it Helles Smoky?
The Helles is the other beer that I was talking about. It was not. But this beer is Helles Smoky. It's balanced. It's very clear. Like if you look at this beer, it's not that clear anymore. How do we do this? There it is. You can see right through it. You can see my titties.
Ooh.
It's that kind of show tonight.
Rating?
Rating, yes. I would easily put this into the 4 threshold. Smoked beers are some of my favorite beers, and I think this actually does an incredible job of having that balance. Sometimes it can be overly smoky or just like very light and lacking that type of element. But I think they kill this beer. It's exactly what I was hoping it would be. I think that's one of the craziest things to do in beer is to describe a beer, put it on a menu, and then have it go from the draft line to somebody's mouth and be exactly what that person in that chair was expecting it to be. And that's what they accomplished. For me, at least.
That was extremely in-depth. Good job, Tyler. You should write that one up.
Right.
For a beer advocate or something. Now that I have the sample ready, once again, Life on Mars, Dexter Wansel, 1976. As we slowly drift in to the sample. As it loads, nothing's perfect. Do. Oh, come on. The playback is messed up. There we go.
The cool.
Nice. This one was an easy one.
Oh my god! As soon as
Lupe
it played, that was way too easy. I love it. I finally got one.
Fiasco's The Cool, the song, not the album.
Right.
And someone who sampled the song video actually got claimed, so you can't play it.
Nice.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, if you don't know,
But
you should know
yeah,
that song.
I chose that in honor of the fact that Lupe Fiasco is releasing an album on the 28th, and so I thought, why not do a
Why not?
little throwback Lupe? If you haven't heard about the album, I heard today about it's a concept album about if Amy Winehouse was a battle rapper.
Oddly here for it.
When I heard that, I was like, kind of Charlie Day type, Always Sunny.
Nightman.
Yeah, it's just like what kind of like who thought like what kind of like what apparently he was watching like her documentary and she mentioned wanting to be a battle rapper in like a voicemail or something and that inspired him to just make an album about it.
I love that. Um, she is one of those that I think she had like a sharp enough mind for it, where I feel like she would have just had a bunch of stuff in her back pocket and easily could adapt it to whoever was in front of her. I'm hoping this might be corny or an easy like way out, but I am hoping that he puts her in a like Rabbit from 8 Mile scenario and just has her like attack herself as well, because I feel like she was like self-aware enough too to just kind of like, yeah, here's
It's a
all my
good
flaws, what do you got? Say I'm a drug addict, what else do you have,
it's going to be interesting to see. Um, it's called Samurai, so I don't know how all that's going to connect just yet, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
I thought he was going to go the samurai route with the single he dropped, and so that makes sense.
Yeah, that is actually the opening track,
Okay, that makes sense.
which is why I'm like, and apparently that chorus in the track is like verbatim her voicemail. So like that chorus is the voicemail where it was talking about wanting to be a bow rapper. So that's kind of cool. Interested to kind of see where that goes. Always down for a Lupe Fiasco album, of course.
Of course.
So that's the sample. And now to get into what I'm drinking, a hard switch. I have a nice Midtown Haze from Millworks, if I can get it to show.
This blurred background might not be the way.
It may not be the way, but obviously all of their cans have like art from like local artists
Yeah, that's fire actually.
at
Didn't Millworks
Millworks.
recently have like a summit for lawmakers to and like beer advocates to come together and talk about like the small like craft beer industry and advocate for a lot of you know legislation and whatnot, what have you. I haven't read or like read any like took a in-depth look at anything yet, but
Hmm.
it seems like that's been kind of the time of year because I feel like it's happened in Harrisburg. I feel like DC has it happened as well. I would have to double check that again. As I stated, I don't read.
Yeah, I haven't seen or heard anything about it, but I'm even less read than you are, so it could be the case.
Yeah, it looks a
At
little
any rate,
blue. Like you might be wearing blue. I'm pinkish salmon. So I mean, I guess I'm closer to red.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
I
Anyway,
watched the concurrent viewers go down a notch after saying that.
did it really?
Yeah,
You're clearing the room. You
there's
are
not a lot
clearing
of
the
people to
room.
begin with.
Uh, well, now it's just us, bud. So you can see this is a fairly hazy IPA. It's not. It's kind of cloudy. I wouldn't go hazy. This is kind of like what hazy would be described as like 10 years ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's not super clear like your beers, therefore it's hazy. With that being said, really nice and balanced, just pretty solid. I give it a 4. Just a nice little IPA to kind of kick things off. It's not too heavy. It's only 6.8, which is only like 1% above yours.
Nice. Sorry, I went down a weird train of thought. I don't know what's going on. Um, would you rate it?
I go a 4.
4? Okay, cool. So we were both in the 4 category today, which is good.
Yeah,
Um,
just solid.
yeah, solid beers all around. Hannah's up in Connecticut. She's on her way home. She stopped at one of the breweries up there. She was in Groton, Connecticut, which is like near Mystic. If you ever heard of like the movie Mystic Pizza or whatever. This is really small coastal like town. But she apparently stopped by one of the best breweries in Groton, which Groton's very small, so I don't know how many breweries were in Groton. Uh,
Yeah, best bird in Glen. It's the only one.
right, but she's bringing home, I believe, a pilsner and an amber, so I'm very excited for that.
Ooh.
But I brought it up because pizza, Mystic Pizza, right? So today, today's live was inspired by some fuck shit that I did this past weekend, uh, which was none other than the 999 challenge. There's some content out there. I don't know if I posted that one in particular, but there's some content out there uh, of the aftermath of said challenge. And for those that don't know, the 999 challenge is 9 innings of baseball. You have a beer an inning and a hot dog every inning. And
Just complete degenerate behavior.
and because of my past history with hot dogs, I was like, this challenge was built for me. 9 beers, 9 innings, 9 hot dogs. That's nothing, right? Especially if I was keeping it to 12-ounce cans. And so I thought, why not? And Hannah, surprisingly, was just like, I'm in as well. So we set out to find a beer, and we landed on Land Shark. I was looking
No,
for
why
like,
land shark?
huh?
Why land shark?
I was looking for something like slightly mighty. I didn't want to go completely like degenerate with like Miller Lite or PBR. So
Yeah, PBR is like the step up from complete degenerate. It's not all the way there.
but I was looking for something lighter as well because I don't think PBR, while it is in the grand scheme of like craft beer, a lighter beer, it's not necessarily the thing that I'm looking to punch back throughout the whole like game, right?
Hmm.
And so I was really looking for something like slightly mighty, like one of these low cal, easy drinking beers. I didn't want to go Michelob Ultra or anything like that. So
Ugh.
exactly, and we landed on Land Shark. Um, in the beginning, it was easy, right? Like it was the hot dog went down, uh, the beer went down. It was a little tough because the first couple of innings in that game in London went pretty quick.
Very quickly, which generally happens, especially I think when you're playing in like a weird
Mm-hmm.
uh, third party type, like a neutral site like that. Like it's always in any sport, like even like the football games that are like international, like the first half is always very slow, maybe a little sloppy. Guys are trying to get going.
Yeah.
Now, granted, this was what the third game.
Second.
That's the big game, second game.
They only did two.
But yeah, but still,
Yeah.
you know,
And so the first two innings went pretty quick, and I was like, "Oh, all right, this is gonna be interesting." The mindset I had was, I'll do the I can't remember which way I went. I either did the hot dog first, and then the beer, or the beer then the hot dog.
I can
And
tell you because you were giving me live updates.
which way did it go?
It went dogs, then beer.
Dogs and beer. Yeah. So the thought process was the dog was gonna be the hardest part. Let me get through that because I can kill a beer, and it will like I'll get some burps in and everything, clear out the system a little bit. I did maybe 4 or 5 innings with a whole the hot dog and the roll, and then it just became
Oh
almost
no.
like damn near impossible. And Hannah had already given up after like 2 innings on the roll, and then finally I decided that was it. Um, and I think it was the ninth inning. Like we both started that hot dog, and just the overwhelming taste of salt by this point. And we both looked at each other and said, "There's no way." So we drank our last beer, and then we opened up another 16 ounce and shared that and said, "Fuck it." So 9.5
You
beers,
you were less than a hot dog away.
but it was that sickening. Like, so I tagged you and Bruising Banner as like people I would have loved to see do it. Bruising
I know.
Banner was like, "I'm too old for it." Here's how I would do this going forward. I would do this as a team, right?
A team.
Yeah, have to do this as team. So, for instance, like Bruising Banner could either do like the 3 or 4 of them, right, and divvy up, you know, equal shares, or like
Oh, okay.
you go
That's
until you
doable.
can't anymore, and then like you tap out, right?
So it's like a tag team
Like
mm,
relay racing.
triple nine. Uh,
And the most disgusting thing I think about it, looking back, was
if you would have only switched to bunless sooner, you could have had room
oh, I think I would have
for
done it
the.
without if it was buns like bunless from the beginning. It was over. I would have.
That's what I'm saying because you know what it harkened me back to an experience we had in high school where I was working a concession stand at a JV basketball game, and one Tyler Washington consumed in an entire JV basketball game, which is shorter than an MLB baseball game by a wide margin, um, close to the 9 hot dogs, very close to the 9 hot
And this
dogs,
is why I
all
thought I
with
could do it,
with the.
all with buns. I literally thought this is why I could do it. I was like, okay, I got this.
And you know what? I think you underestimate. You know what? And this is what I wanted to get into the strategy of it, right? Because I think there were a few missteps. One, it was kind of hard to tell from the photo of the hot dogs that you sent, which they looked great, by the way,
Thank you.
but they looked quite large for hot dogs. Now the video of you swinging it around, it kind of looked a little more like a normal hot dog, but still, like I think if you picked up just your standard pack of Burke's hot dogs, I think that's a
Okay,
plus.
here here's where that misstep is aligned, and I'll explain this part. We went to Lidl and picked up some hot dogs, and my mindset was, we are going to destroy these things. I am going to get the cheapest hot dog possible because this isn't
That's
about pleasure. This is about efficiency here.
but now here's where the strategy comes in, right? It wasn't the mass of hot dog
It was the quality.
that did you in. It was the makeup of said hot dog.
You're right.
You would have got a better quality hot dog. I think you finish.
I think I have to
I
try again
also I
next
You were
season.
so close.
Next
You were
season.
so close next season. How about a playoff game?
Oh, okay. That's fair. I'll do it for a playoff game.
Playoff game, maybe hope cross fingers World Series game.
Hmm. If I decide
Um,
to do this, will you join me?
I'll have to take my blood pressure like the day before just to make sure.
Let's use this as
Because
like a
unlike you, I'm human.
let's do this as like a training thing, right? So like starting today, what we will do is we'll look at like fucking Kobayashi or something like that and look at their training regiment and we will modify it for ourselves. But maybe it'll be like a fitness thing. Like we hit these like fitness marks so that we've done enough good for our body to completely destroy the temple later.
The sacking of the temple will occur in October. You know what? I do like the excuse to, try to. You always do need a good excuse to continue to work on health.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that aspect of it. I could take you up on that. There is another piece of this strategy that I would like to talk to you about, and it's your selection of land shark. I'm kind of hmm, how do I feel like land shark, while being like one of the lighter beers, is like sneaky not light. And
I can tell you by like that sixth, seventh inning, I agree.
I feel like by the sixth or seventh inning, any beer wouldn't feel light at that point. But I do feel like now, obviously, your first choice was like a slightly mighty or something, and I think or a lighthearted. Like if we did like a lighthearted or a slightly mighty, like that would be
Perfect.
the real. Because other than that, you are reserved to stuff that also tastes awful after a while.
Right.
But I feel like for as close as you were with your strategic mishaps, like all you gotta do is sure up the strategy a little bit, and I feel like you can knock it out of the park. Yeah.
Baseball bun.
Hot dog bun? No,
Hot
no,
dog
that doesn't
bun.
work. I think higher quality dog and well, true light beer
Yeah.
is definitely like the road to success, the path to success there.
Okay.
Or you could have, nah, that's just what you have to do. I don't think there's any way around it.
So the the only thing, well, not the only thing. I think my strategy had the best intentions. I definitely agree with you where the mishaps were, but I will tell you, it was my second game of choice. This wasn't my first game of choice to do it. I was actually going to try it for the game the night before, and I was happy that we ended up having a scheduling conflict that kind of forced us to do the Sunday game. Now, while it was a Sunday, that wasn't my favorite element of it. But because this game started at 10 in the morning, it was completely okay by the next day.
And you would be, I would not. So I wouldn't be either way. So I would rather not start this challenge at 10 a.m. Because when I saw that you were doing this for a 10 a.m. game, I was flabbergasted. I was shocked. I was appalled. I was bamboozled, hoodwinked.
I had nothing in
Then
my
I'm like,
nothing in my system yet. I don't even think I had a fucking coffee that day. So nothing in my
then
system. I was hungry as shit going into that, you know? Uh, and so I thought, you know what? This is even better than I expected because, like, I didn't do breakfast. I'm ready to go. You know, the first couple innings should be fucking easy, and let's just like rock this. And that was the other.
you sound like every runner ever before their first marathon.
I did a half marathon and it went well.
And this is your downfall because you are not that spry mid 20-year-old anymore.
Damn straight.
And I think this is where you have to prepare a little better. I
That's
think if you would have had some water, that could have cut the sting of the alcohol down a little bit.
the fucking salt.
Maybe if you and the salt, yeah, and the salt, maybe your blood would have actually been moving by the end. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you would have went to like go get blood drawn right at that moment, nothing would have come out.
It just blocks the whole thing up.
Yeah, it's just pre-clotted.
They pull it out and just like a sand like substance starts coming out.
I was gonna say it's more like a roux,
Ooh, ooh,
a
good
blood
job. Let's
a
keep
blood
it
roux.
food related.
Well, I would have. So we just talked about 999 challenge and these hot dogs. What is your take on Mr. Joey Chestnut and the whole
Okay,
fiasco, the dog fiasco?
so I didn't. Again, I don't read a lot, right? Um, but I believe I saw somewhere the issue that happened was he wanted to do vegan dogs,
Okay.
and therefore Nathan's was like, "Fuck you, you're out." And that's as much as I know. Um,
Ironically, it would be so much harder to eat vegan dogs for that competition. Because just think about like the 999, like nine hot dogs is kind of insane no matter what, right?
right.
But it's made most insane by the beer, which takes up a considerable amount of space.
Oh yeah.
So imagine if you just combine each inning into a single entity that is a vegan dog, which is essentially based, it's just a carb tube instead of a protein tube. So you're basically getting all of that heaviness in one hot dog,
Things
and then
just
you
get a
still need
little
to
wee
eat the
heavy.
bone. It is it, okay. 999 challenge with wee heavies
Oh
instead.
god.
Wee heavies and brats.
Ah, oh, I think I
And
threw up a little.
it's not even per inning. It's the 3-3-3 challenge. Can you just do it like once every 3 innings?
That I could do.
But you might end up feeling the same way at the end.
That I could do. So it would be, and you would move it from a 12 ounce and kind of have to set the standard to a 16 ounce. You know.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Because if you do, well, so what you did 12 ounces for 9 innings,
Mm. And then the
which gets
bonus
you what?
16
That's
ounce
81 ounces.
plus the bonus 16 ouncer at the end, which divide by two.
Well, that's a bonus. I'm talking
That
about
was
the
extra
standard
innings.
99999 challenge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're doing you're doing 81 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, 316s gets you whatever that gets you for, so 50, 40. I don't even do the math right now because I can't. Like 49, I think.
48.
Ounce, 48 ounces. So do you up that to a stovepipe can, which is the 19.3 or whatever it is?
But you can only really do
Three of
that if you
those.
have like a growler or a few growlers or like a pony keg, you know? Like you can't really
Okay, now we're getting a little carried away with it. We do like a
do a kegger.
one keg, one, and it's obviously going to end up being Heineken because it's always Heineken.
Always Heineken.
It's a
Um,
Heine.
my God. Okay, we're definitely gonna have to set some parameters, set this thing up, and then I think come October maybe we'll be ready.
We won't be ready, but we're going to do it.
I'm gonna use ChatGPT to set up a couple of questions for us that we need to answer in terms of
Jesus.
our current health status, and then generate like a goal of what we should be able to do by, say, that October, to kind of make sure that we've done our duty health wise to indulge in such
Indulge isn't
debauchery.
even a word.
Huh?
Indulge isn't the word, though. We're not indulging. It's more of like taking on
To
this
suffer.
burden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To suffer through this. Yeah. I think
pretty
maybe you're
much.
right.
Which I think you did by the end of this game.
Oh, it was not good. Like, I definitely took a nap. Woke up at like 7 something at night. Just not good. Definitely had another beer later, but that's just me.
It's trying to get some get some more calories in you.
Yeah, just had to balance myself out for the next day. Monday. Well, I couldn't wake up Monday and have a beer before work, which was usually like my cure for the next day. So
Well, yeah, generally your cures for the next day do need to happen the night before.
what?
They generally don't happen the day of. That's
Yeah, that's what my watermelon waters are for. Um,
well,
bloody
coconut water maybe.
See, coconut water like never got me there, but watermelon water has always brought me back to life.
Hmm. A little Pedialyte.
I don't know. It's this literal. It's called watermelon water. I buy it at Target. The first time I had it was at
Of course, you bought it at
was
Target.
in Philly and after New Year's with Tyler Shoebridge, and the hotel Starbucks was fucking nuts. So I just picked up something that was in the little cooler there and
Yeah.
and bought that, and it was this watermelon water, and that was one of the craziest fucking New Year's I've ever had. That brought me back to life.
Wow.
Yeah. However,
Glowing recommendation for watermelon water.
yeah, now this is the truth. If anything's gonna bring you back to life, it could be just a regular headache. Go for watermelon water. I tell you what, that thing has saved my like ass so many times.
Mm.
What? So
Well, since you're hitting your second beer here, I'm gonna quick grab mine while you introduce your beer.
okay, I am doing the triple bottom glow again. I did
Never
not
mind.
I did not splurge today. I did not, and I'll explain this. This is why I haven't splurged. Um, Normally, I would have ran out somewhere to pick up like a mix and match 4 pack, 6 pack, what have you. But the decision is we are heading up to New England, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And so I don't get paid until like maybe a good week into us being out there. I just got paid last night. I won't get paid until 2 weeks again. And so I was like, you know what? I'll get a beer for today, but everything else, this is like crunch time for a lot of bills for me, so this is where everything hits. And I'm like, I'm just gonna pay my shit off, and then try to be as frugal as possible for this trip. This is also why we got shitty hot dogs. Um,
Fair enough.
because it was just like my mindset is just like penny pincher right now. Because
Yeah, I
it
mean, two more dollars could have won you the challenge, though. So
that's true. But this trip, like, okay, so we're doing Salem, Massachusetts. We're doing Portland, Maine, and we're doing Burlington, Vermont. And so, like, within this trip, you know, we're going to do Treehouse. We're going to do Allagash. We're going to do Hillstead Farm, right? Like, there's
Trillium? Do you
Trillium,
say Trillium?
no. Trillium, no, because one, I've already done Trillium, but two, um, because it's not in the right, you know.
Path? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're gonna do the Alchemist. You know, there's so many places that we're going to be near and hit. You know, Zero Gravity's up there, Burlington Beer Company's up there. Um,
Yeah.
there's there's so many good places. Oh, Maine Beer Company, like
True.
it was. It's been in my mind that it's just like, okay, I could go get a beer today, or like, you know, go get a 6 pack of this, you know, or these people are dropping something. And I've had to really shift my like train of thought of, you know, I really want to hit up as many breweries as possible. You know, limit myself to like one or two um, at the place and just bring back a bunch. Like my goal with the beer
Yeah.
fridge here is to like fill her up because I want to share it with people and not, you know, go through it so quickly. And so it's like really filling this guy up so that like when you're here or if I'm like talking with Matt, right? I have like, oh, here's something I really think you should try. I really want to like build that out because I think that's really cool. And I
Yeah,
want
I
to,
agree with that
yeah, I want to foster that
that idea.
collection. So that's
Yeah,
why I
because
have this.
I do not have a collection.
Huh?
I do not have a collection.
We got to work on that. We're gonna work on it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we definitely do. I have another Millworks beer. This one is Super Boost. It's a hazy double dry hopped double IPA.
Oof, sounds
And
good.
as you can see, this has some nice artwork again, local artwork. This one here is coming in at 9%, and you can definitely taste that. But it's a cool standard, like really opaque, can't see through it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you got the aromatics. It's juicy, kind of reminiscent like of orange juice in a way, but not quite as sweet.
Okay.
And it's good. It's good. I'm thinking like a 3.75 to 4
All
on
right.
this one, right?
Not bad. Not bad.
Um, I feel like it's a 4 because while I enjoy this slightly less than the last one, I also enjoy the last one's style a little better.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like on the same level in terms of quality.
All right. I like that. You brought up style, and I'm really trying to transition into more of these food misadventure conversations, but I
Yeah.
had to bring this up. And I don't know why I do this to myself. I feel like it's cyclical, you know, like I feel like they piss me off enough and I like vow to never consume their shit again, and then something happens and I try back into it and I find some stuff that I really like, and then they
Tired hands.
no good guess, and then they do some
Evil
things.
genius.
Nope. And then they do some more things and I'm just like I fucking can't do it anymore, and I'm sure, and
Mhm.
that's where I'm at, and I'm pretty sure I'll go right back into it, but
Oh, other half.
no. Vine Pair.
I thought you were talking about it in explicitly a brewery, or else I would have guessed Vine Pair right away.
Well, it's about beer. And so I had never, I guess what got me back into them was I had never listened to their podcast until this year. Um, and I must have found them in a nice little sweet spot where they were offering a few gems and some like really insightful like conversations and information, and I was really about it. Um, but then they just started saying some really dumb shit and discuss and
And we've talked about it, right? We've talked about Vine Pair's dumb shit
yeah,
before.
we've talked about their dumb shit before, especially the maybe black people just don't like beer um conversation, and it
Yeah.
was and it was written by a black like editor, or writer, or journalist, and I think that frustrated me even more because I feel like, at least to me, it felt like they positioned somebody to, and I'm talking out my ass here too. Like I don't know this person from fucking anybody, right? And it was a weird. It was weird no matter what. The article was gonna be weird no matter what, no matter who wrote it. It was gonna be weird from a white guy writing it because like, how do you come out and write something like this? And then it's weird from a black person because it kind of just feels like, oh, we pick somebody to kind of fucking fit the mold of what we're trying to say. Um, and it was more of I think, again, from our conversation back then, it was more they were trying to come from an art angle of like, but should black people even like be in craft beer? Like we don't have to like everything that like white people like and everything like this. And it was just like, that could be true if there were, and again, this is all we discussed, if there were no barrier of entries, if it was a completely and truly an environment that a lot of breweries claim to foster, an inclusive, welcoming like environment. But that's not the case, and until that happens, and then after access and options and like entry and all of that, we decide to say, you know what, this isn't like our thing, then that's fine. But until you can like level the playing field, give the opportunity, have like our time of day in there, it like it's impossible to say that. There's too many like what ifs there. And so that's what originally put me off from them. Came back in, they brought in some really good like interviews, and a lot of what was being said about beer wasn't coming from Vine Pair, again, a publication that obviously has a like bias here towards wine, uh, and it started leading into like actual conversations from people that were actually in the industry and everything, and that's what I was here for. They were talking about industry trends and things that weren't necessarily beer, but things that weren't necessarily wine or liquor either. It kind of was like all consuming, and so that's what I thought was very interesting. Then we fast
Okay.
forward a little bit, and some of the more frustrating conversations I started hearing was, you know, the craft light lager doesn't really exist and nobody wants it, and that there isn't a distinguishable difference for craft light lagers. I have a refined palate, and I have a trained palate, and even I find it difficult to tell the difference between one light lager and the other.
Okay. So, hot take, not a hot take. I feel like Vine Pair is just a lot of those things are hot takes for the sake of them being a hot take. Because, like, that's a very disingenuous thing to say when what's the most popular craft beer style in America right now? It's going to be a hazy IPA. They all taste the same.
I can't wait to get into more of the why this frustrated me. But yes, exactly, hazy IPA.
So, like, that right there. Um, and then you talk about, like, okay, light beer. inherently there's less room to work with in terms of developing a flavor. Um, the most I think what and then it's the what purpose is the serving? In which case, like for me, if I'm gonna drink a light beer, I love it to taste good, but then at the same time, it's more the utility of it being light.
Hmm.
I'm there for its lightness more than I'm there for some flavor bomb experience, right? And if it's good and it can stay good throughout like multiple glasses of it or multiple cans of it, whatever, I think that's what a good light beer should be. Like, for example, the macros for most of them, besides like straight up Budweiser, like if you just drink like the first sip of those beers isn't terrible. It's the back half of that first can or glass where it's like, oh, the flavor's gone. It's just now like dog water.
Right. So it feels like diluted beer.
Yeah, and then the rest of your experience now, no matter if you get a fresh one, it's the same
Definitely.
thing because you it just destroys your palate.
Right.
Whereas like a lighthearted or the Dogfish Head,
Slightly lighter.
the yeah, like they're light. They taste like that first sip of a good of any light beer, but then it just stays like that, and it's always just that good. It doesn't deteriorate.
So, and here's partly why I thought it was crazy too, because I was just like, you know, you have your light lager, but you also have like your pilsners and everything, right? Where you have these light versions of beer that can have very nuanced elements to it, right? Like the grain build on everything, right? And just how it really presents itself. Is it floral? Is it more malty? Like all of these, the crispness of it, right? All of these elements that can come into just even a pilsner alone, let alone like what you can like do with a light lager. It blew my mind. I was just like, you guys are talking about having such a like refined palate, but you don't appreciate the quality because like I like to try the pilsner wherever I go, and I can say with certainty there's a difference from pilsner from place to place to place. It's easy to be like, this pilsner isn't of grade, right? And
And that's the difference between whatever that Pilsner is at Miller High Life,
right,
which is your quintessential, Pilsner.
yeah. And so
I
I
mean,
think it was wild to hear that, but it was even more bizarre because they had just done an episode that somebody went out to the like beer event in Vegas, that Great American like beer competition, right? That everybody goes out to. There's so
yeah,
many categories, and they were talking about the shift in craft beer, especially like it's a different vibe than before. I think it was one of the first times since COVID where it was like really back to like um, where it was prior. But they were talking about how the IPA no longer is the mark, like it's no longer the point of reference for how a brewery is going to do before like like if IPAs, if you can make a good IPA you did well, like you lived or die by IPA, but now your IPAs aren't
yeah,
actually a indicator of how well a brewery will do anymore because people are kind of like IPA fatigued, right? Because they're getting juice bombed.
right.
There's all this stuff that's just a oversaturation of the market. So they go in to say this, and they say the only surviving, like, only way to like continue this out and survive is to be able to do other styles and everything like that. Then turn around and talk about no one wants a fucking craft lager.
So what are their thoughts on, and I'm asking you this seriously because I haven't listened to the podcast. Have they expressed their thoughts on things like the boom of seltzers or canned cocktails in like the craft brewery scene?
So they
Uh,
do. So I admittedly tend to shy away from non-beer episodes. Um, I know they
Which
have
is fair enough.
I know they have referenced those non-beer episodes. Um,
Because like my question is like, what are their thoughts on the seltzer movement in that space? And we've talked to people in the industry who are saying, it's coming around to the point where like you need these seltzers, um, you need not NA beers to really survive because it's coming to a point I think where like craft beer is no longer the niche hippie underground thing that it was like starting to come out of when we got into it.
mhm,
Like I think we got into the tail end of it being like super underground and not mainstream yet,
right.
but it quickly boomed,
Yeah.
right? And now it's just part of American culture at this point. It's now like a mainstream thing. There's breweries all over the place. And so you have people who are experiencing this thing that don't necessarily like the core thing that it's
Mhm.
selling in a sense. Because breweries are fighting for position and trying to stay relevant. They need things more than just here's some beer. So you go there, you get an experience. There's
Well,
music, there's food, there's a place. So people are coming, but they don't want beer necessarily, a lot of them
well,
at
and
this
so
point.
it's funny that you just mentioned that because their most recent beer-related episode that I had to turn off was has craft beer gotten boring?
Hmm. Though that's an interesting question because it depends on if you ask, is rap music like boring or one note in this day and age,
I'm so happy you
right?
brought it up like this.
Because I think it's something we can both speak to that's very analogous. It's like people who aren't completely deep in the product or the industry or what have you, they're looking at the mainstream trends and they're seeing that it's all one note in the same thing, not understanding or realizing that there's more depth and variety if you're going to go search for it or be open to it. And I think people get caught up in like the lens of whatever they're seeing at the time. And that kind of gets into like curated social media feeds and this type of thing where it's like you're only seeing what the algorithm thinks you want to see. And there's all this other stuff to see. And if you're just looking at this big brewery or this big brewery and you're not looking at like all these other different choices out there, you're not exploring the world of different styles, then yeah, I think you might come to that conclusion. But it's kind of, and it's the same thing with like rap music being like, if you're just going to talk about like mainstream popular music,
Right, and
it's not.
I think that is the point too. It's I think what gets frustrating with them is if they're not bringing on somebody who's like in it and likes it, because like they'll do the yeah, I talked to a craft brewer who just says yeah, like craft beer is like bad, and it's just like you didn't name drop this person, you didn't bring them in to talk about what the actual nuance is. There's probably it's probably just a soundbite, and went on to continue saying that because I can't imagine somebody working being like a head brewer and thinking that their brewery is a bad brewery, right? Um, but to bring it back to the
And if it is, and if they are, they're picking a place that has like a failing business model,
right,
you
um,
know, like
but
not representative at all.
exactly. But then to go back to the music element that you were talking about, the comparison there, I think I think that was a brilliant comparison because somebody who one doesn't like rap music to begin with, um, but but doesn't like rap music because all they're hearing is for say like Drake, or maybe Drake's the only rap music they like, right? And doesn't like the other stuff, or finds the other stuff boring, right? Or finds that most of it is the same for some reason. I think that's not a very like that's not who you would go to and say like, okay, cool, I want to get your like really good take on this, because they are not invested enough nor spend the time to speak with people who have spent that time with the tracks, listened to everything. Um, Damn, there used to be a publication, and I can't think of what it was called anymore, that really did take that time into listening to music and did a lot of like really cool articles. Can't fucking think of the publication anymore. I don't even know if they're around, but uh, it, that's where it's hard for me, and I think that's where I have such a hard time with VinePair, is because they will drop that one gem that I was like, oh, they have the resources to do this like right the whole time. I'm excited to hear more about what they're going to say, and then you listen to the episodes where they just like outrightly just say some stupid shit, and it's an obvious like lack of any effort
Like
to look into
get
it,
being know to yeah.
right? Because it's
Yeah. I
like,
would say sorry, yeah, go
no,
ahead. Go ahead, finish your
it's different if like it's a very like short like part of an episode that you were speaking on, and you're like, oh, this is just how I feel. But when your whole episode is dedicated to like the craft beer industry or something like that, and then to like be very dismissive, um, it's weird, because they were talking about the marketing and like just not understanding, what to get, and so they wanted like a good IPA. The one day, this is one of the hosts was talking about, I wanted a good IPA. I was in New York, and it was rainy Memorial Day weekend. I was gonna have to go to the beach or whatever. I couldn't. We were gonna go to a brewery, so we just stayed at home, and I like go puff some beer, and I was gonna go puff something from Grimm, but I didn't know what I was getting in terms of an IPA, and they just had all these IPAs, so I went with Other Half because they had better marketing, and I and better name recognition, because I knew what Green City was from Other Half, and that's the problem, is nobody knows how to market themselves right in craft beer. And I was just sitting there, just like, you're telling me you had all these options from Grimm that you could have just picked, or you could have looked it up. And I was just like, and you just decided to go like with somebody else because you didn't know enough, and that's fine. But that's the whole point. The whole point of craft beer is to try things. And I was just listening to this. I was just like, it just seems like somebody who doesn't care to like look into it, because I don't even think Grimm is an obscure enough brewery to be like, I just didn't know what they had to offer.
yeah, no, that's Grim. Like you can find Grim everywhere. At least around us, right? Like
And Grimm's, it's New York, so it's just like they were talking about a New York brewery, and I was just like, no, you just don't care. And if we're talking about marketing and doing it right, then again, like, yeah, Other Half did it right, but they are the quintessential like fatigue. They are the fatigue of a style.
yeah, and then like the other thing is like so it wasn't actually marketing, it was just name recognition because like marketing is so subjective and there's obviously things that you can do in your marketing to draw people in. But at the end of the day, if you're just looking at two cans of beer, particularly like with something like Other Half is very recognizable, yes.
Mm.
But if you already know Other Half, which this person is admitted to, and you're going in and you're like, I don't really know Grimm, at that point, so you know Other Half. And you're not getting the eye isn't being caught because Other Half put broccoli and cheese on its label and called it cheese and broccoli. Like it's because you saw it was an Other Half beer. Okay, cool. And you already know what that brings. So now you have Grimm, and that comes down to just like a taste thing,
Right.
like taste in terms of like art style or whatever. So this is just your opinion on taste. Like, oh, I just don't like Grimm's aesthetic. Okay. That doesn't mean they're bad at marketing. It just means you aren't the person they're marketing towards.
And I think on the other side of it too, it's like you're talking about a brewery that has what 9+ locations, and so obviously there's like a recognition there, right? Especially for people
Mhm.
that are traveling to do these other things or whatever. That other half's going to be around. Grimm's not going to be around. You're going to be more familiar with one than the other just by sheer availability. It's been bizarre. I'm done for a while. I've come home many of days and just unloaded on Hannah, so I'm done.
Hey man, we don't need to hear about any of the craziness that had no.
Yeah. Uh, I felt like you were going to. Did you have something else to say on that, or did you get a
I
chance?
was I was just gonna say like with Vine Pair, like it is one of those things where like we talk a lot about and there's things where we just aren't read up on. And in our honesty, we just try our best to not speak out and say give a take that's like this is how it is in
Mm,
my mind,
right.
and then not give some type of like information of oh this is my point, but I don't know enough to say this is definitively why this is this way, or this is definitively what it is. Or we'll just abstain altogether and say, you know what, there's something else I don't know enough to speak on it. And I think like when it comes to like the internet and it comes to like traffic, it always comes to like conflict and inflammatory statements and this and that. So, and we've read Vine Pair articles and discussed those before. And I kind of feel like, at least when it comes to craft beer, like their whole model is just say inflammatory stuff, have enough of a foot in it to be able to act like without actually needing to understand certain things or know certain things. And then just, you're going to say something inflammatory, people are going to talk about it. They see the headline, it's just a clickbait type like model for craft beer. And I don't know if that's how they always operate in other areas, but for craft beer it is.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I mean, it would be like it would be as if say I was Republican and I decided to watch CNN, right? What would CNN do? They would be saying things, and I would be getting riled up about it because obviously they kind of want to say this is all bad, but like this is all good over here, right? And so when you're looking at a publication like VinePair, right? Because it's all media, it's all like there's all a purpose behind it, and at the end, it's going to be VinePair at the end of the day is always going to be wine leading, uh, leaning, wine leaning, and so at the end of the day, no matter what they're doing, if they're talking about cocktails, if they're talking about non-alcoholic, if they're talking about beer, seltzer, what have you, the going out on a limb here, it's always going to try to bring somebody back into being a part of wine, and I think the reason why I try to get into some of these publications sometimes and to listen to these point of views is because I don't want to just always go to I'm right.com and just kind of like get fed what I believe to be true. Um, so I go to
Sure.
them every once in a while, and there is always just this sliver of greatness, and then it just goes all to hell.
Yeah, and there is I think there's a balance, right? Because it is like you need to stay informed. But in general, with anything, like it's like you want to stay informed, but at what point are we getting like once you understand the point is disingenuous,
Mhm.
then you can then just move on, and that's it. You don't want to subject yourself to continuous frustration and anger
Sure.
over this thing that you know isn't being genuine about their opinion. They're just being inflammatory for the sake of being inflammatory.
I know why I went back to them. I went back to them because craft beer was and it is in a moment of decline, right? In terms of just numbers, like it's not this huge upswing that we saw on these graphs of places opening, just all this great revenue coming in from craft beer. We're seeing a little bit of a plateau and decline, right? We've hit a pinnacle. And so rather than listen to a bunch of publications that kind of try to cover that up or don't talk about it as um, in much scrutiny, you know, in as much scrutiny, I thought Vine Pair would be a very interesting publication to listen to. I was hoping to be a little more like just factual about things, and the times that they
Actual
were,
factuals.
yeah, the times that they were like doing things by the numbers, great. The times that they weren't, fucking awful. And yeah, I didn't want to hear Vine Pair about how they feel about stuff. I wanted to hear Vine Pair about what they know about industry and industry trends. Um,
Right, which it sounds a lot like they just don't. And I mean, unless they have an industry person on, maybe it's not even worth the discussion because you know what it's going to be. It's just, it's like it's like what you said before, like going to a Fox News as a Democrat and expecting them to discuss something that's happening with your lens,
right,
and then you're just like, well, none of this is true, or this point is ridiculous.
right,
It's just, yeah, they're doing it and saying it this way because they're purposely trying to rile the people on the other side up and
bullshit.
engage the people that are far into that side.
True.
And I
I
do think that, the wine community probably does think of craft beer as like the degenerate, lesser than side of drink.
last thing I'll say on this, and then we can move into the misadventures of food. Um, it it makes me laugh when they talk about the nuances of stuff too, and I'm just like, and this is where I know my complete bias. I enjoy wine, but you cannot tell me that there's huge differences between some of these reds, right? And that's where I'm just like, and knowing that I don't know enough and I'm not trained enough, this is where definitely like there's this, I'm willing and I'm able to say I don't see it, but I know I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
Well, we could just start a podcast called the Bind Pair Podcast and just talk shit on the wine industry for
Well, it's actually
an
really
hour.
interesting. I want to bring in more guests for these lives, and try out our format so that we can start doing actual episodes remote. And the one of the first, if not the first person I want to bring in to do this episode with us is Alsop, who's actually working for a wine company doing marketing, and is has been sent to wine classes to learn more about that stuff, but who is also now into craft beer, whereas before he was not. When we were like going to different places with him before, he was not a craft beer drinker. So I think he is
It's
the
weird, yeah.
perfect person to talk to.
And we did have him on an episode on a live previously. the holiday special. Check it out.
Yeah, but I don't think
But
he was into craft beer then, right?
he was that was like his he was into our craft beer.
Yeah, true, 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 true.
But we were the gateway beer,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh my God, that special. You're right. That was a good day.
It was a great day.
Yeah. So that was his meeting in point. That was good times.
Yeah.
Um.
So my question for you is
Yes.
misadventures of food?
Yes. What is
Go on.
it? Well,
Go on.
I thought this would be fun because I thought the 999 challenge was obviously a misadventure in one capacity, but I think we both had interesting moments in the kitchen, um, and I think it's important to talk about shortcomings and failures, especially when trying to get into something that I'm sure we're going to have a lot of shortcomings and failures, right? So I
Yes.
was wondering if there was any specific moments in your personal food journeys that just didn't turn out the way you expected. I will go off with one real quick just to kind of set the tone.
All right.
And now this was also a misadventure in drinking for me. Um, College, shocker.
Wow,
After
you were okay.
yeah, after having a few one too many, I woke
Phew.
I woke up and I knew I was in a very short window of time to make it to a class.
Okay.
And so I'm heading out the door and I think to myself, did I put a pork butt in the fucking crock pot? And if I did, there's no lid on it.
Oh my God.
No, I wouldn't do that. Went to class for the day. Came back.
You didn't just go to the kitchen and check?
No, I was already out the door. Came back home to the driest pork butt.
You say you had some pork jerky.
Yeah, it was inedible. I tried. It was inedible. Just it was the
Oh my God.
one of the saddest pork adventures I've ever like gone on, and
Hey now.
yeah, and yeah, I don't think I've ever done something quite like that since, but that memory sticks out.
Wow. If you can imagine, I don't have anything quite that interesting. Uh, being one of very there's a drinking misadventure which would be when Ryan got into law school. He got his letter on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon. I walked in the door and he had the handle of Hennessy
That's
on
disgusting.
sitting handle of Hennessy and like two things of apple juice. And he goes, I got into law school. And I was like, put my bag down. We didn't finish the bottle very technically. And there was also a power outage in the middle of this, which so then we were on the porch instead. But that was probably the most I've ever consumed in like a sitting. And I wouldn't recommend it, though I would recommend Hennessy and apple juice, the combination in general.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's a wonderful combination.
It sounds so bad, but it's actually good.
No, it's
And
great.
then
I've had it with you.
and then the food misadventure, the infamous Easy Mac issue, which I'm glad that you've forgotten that I've told you this story. But I was dubbed Easy Mac Chris my freshman year
You
because
set off the fire alarm.
I set off the fire alarm because I had a 3 hour physics lab on a Monday night, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay. After that, I got back in and I was like, I just need something. So I tiredly grabbed the Easy Mac. I don't put nearly enough water in it. That was just kind of like a blur. And put it in the microwave for the entire period of what it's supposed to go in for. And when I opened the door, the smoke is just billowing out of the microwave. And we were trying our best to figure out how to not have the fire alarms go off, but darn it, the fire alarms went off, and it was like 10:30. It was like 10:30 on a Monday night, and the entire dorm's fire system is connected. So even though it went off in the lounge, the rest of the building, obviously, fire alarms going off. Now Erwin is running around to everyone's room about the sprinklers that we think are going to go off, telling people to hide their stuff under the beds because the sprinklers are going to go off. And then everyone's evacuated. And I step outside after trying to do damage control. And I'm like one of the last people to leave. And some kid goes, "That's the guy who did it right there," in front of like 50 kids who have had to evacuate on their dorms on a Monday night at 10:30 p.m.
That's funny as
So
shit. Easy Mac
that
Fitness.
and you've seen my college dorm area, like,
Yeah.
because my building went off, there's a dorm connected to it, technically. That system's connected because the buildings are connected, so they had to evacuate, and then all the commotion's happening, so all the other buildings see what's happening, they come out. So everyone's there to watch the firefighters go in and come out with this burnt bowl of Easy Mac.
Amazing. Just
So
amazing.
that is certainly, and listen, your scenario could have ended up that way, but apparently it did not, because you at least put enough liquid in the crock pot.
I don't even think there was it. It was just this dry type of heat, right? Because it's not fire.
It's an Arizona heat.
It's just not like it's very low temperature, So it was literally just jerkying out. Um, I think one of our combined misadventures in food it's hard to label it a misadventure. It's more just it equated more to just a waste of time, but it was a good waste of time because we were just sitting there and drinking anyways. Is our chicken day.
Yeah, our chicken day was awesome.
Right. We
We
had
made some of the best chicken.
yeah, in
It just took
a whole
forever.
a whole day.
It was like a 5 hour affair to cook some chicken tenderloins.
Yeah, it was
That were
like
already tenderloins.
it was so funny because it didn't even so you hear that conversation, right? You hear 5 hours chicken, and the first thing that comes to my mind now after spending a lot more time with the grill is okay, so it's essentially smoked. While these came out great, smoke wasn't like a flavor that I contribute to to this process. I don't
We
know.
tried. We tried.
I don't know how we didn't get smoke out of this. It was such a
You-
low temperature that it just barely cooked.
Yeah. Yeah. So between that and the fact that mise en place was not a thing we even knew was a thing at the time. Like we did every step that we were gonna do, and that was all off the cuff sequentially. We didn't combine any steps to save any time. Like I feel like if we did this now, even on a whim, we could get that done like in an hour.
Bro, I got back home at 6 o'clock today, knowing that we had this at 7. Took the dog for a walk. Came back inside. So before I took the dog for a walk, seasoned the chicken, No, patted the shit dry, seasoned the chicken, put it in the fridge to let it marinate. Came back, started rice immediately, then went out for the grill to warm that up. After taking the chicken out to like get back to like room temperature, heated that shit up on like each side for like 5 minutes. Came back, rice done, chicken shredded after putting some lime in it after it rested for 10 minutes. And had it here at 7 o'clock. So it must have been like 7:20 when I started. So 40 minutes later, I had my meal with great
Nice.
flavor. Like,
Which, by the way, our chicken did have
had an
great flavor.
amazing flavor. It was just like such the slowest cook ever. Do you have any more beer left?
I have one sip.
And then
This is it.
that's it. No more left after that.
No.
Okay.
He was woefully unprepared.
Ah. Well, I am going to take a quick commercial break because even though I tried to prevent this in the beginning, I still have to use the bathroom. So, a quick commercial break, and then we'll wrap up on the food misadventures.
All right, let's wrap it up after a quick commercial break.
Back from our sponsors. Alrighty. Waiting for Chris to come back. But we are talking about food misadventures real quick. And we talked about some of our not so great moments, like Chris setting a dorm on fire.
Wait, what?
And me almost setting my apartment on fire. I think the best way to wrap up the food conversation, these misadventure elements, before we're bringing it back to craft beer, is I'm going to ask a series of questions, and it's going to be, are you one or the other? So either or, right?
Okay.
For instance, are you a undercooker or an overcooker?
100% an overcooker, and I'm trying my hardest to not be. But and I've gotten better, but I am definitely an overcooker. I would far, I would much rather be safe about it than not be safe about it. But I
So
do have a problem.
it's very interesting. I find myself to be, oddly enough, the places that I'm an overcooker on pork and beef somehow.
Freaking what?
Beef.
See, I can do beef okay because I'm okay with it being under.
Right. And so I think where my overcooking of beef comes from sometimes is I think it really only happens when I'm cooking for other people. When I'm cooking for like multiple people, if it's not just myself or if it's not just myself and Hannah, I tend to be an overcooker in the beef category. I tend to,
Okay.
unless it's a burger, for some reason I just undercook some burgers because I do believe the burger should bleed a little. And a lot of people don't. Uh, and I like a medium rare burger. But pork is the one thing, even if it's for myself, I tend to undercook. And I don't know why, because I love pork. And I think sometimes what happens is because some of the, especially if it's like a thinner pork chop, like a thinner like piece of pork, that I tend to cook way too quick. And I usually find myself going, fuck, because then it becomes just like rubber. Um,
Yeah.
but I do tend to undercook chicken. But I am the type that will never. I always have like the biggest piece of chicken usually is for me or something like that, and so I check that one first, and if that one is an issue,
That's yeah, you got to do that. You
it's
got to
not.
check the big one.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean everything else is an issue, but if it's like pretty fucking evident really quick into this piece of chicken that it's a problem, because
Yeah.
I also like to let things rest a lot and like soak up the juices and cook through that process as well. And so
Yes.
I use that thicker one to be like, mm, is there enough pink that letting this rest will take care of this, or is this like no fucking way? There's not going to be enough time for this thing to rest that would ever cook this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
So, with that being said, are you overly attentive to what you're cooking or under attentive? Meaning, do you like put it on and walk away, Easy Mac, or are you there looking?
Overly. And and that might be a reason why, but I tend to not be uh, confident with what I'm doing. So I'm constantly checking it, maybe sometimes to the point of like touching it too much, or
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to cook if you keep messing with it, you know? So
I I
I'm looking.
I think I'm definitely on the over attentive side, but I think I've always been over attentive on the cooking. I think I've become less attentive on what I am like cooking and paying less attention to it. Um, and walking away from it actually caused me more issues. Um, I think staying near it, I like cooking in a way that even when not touching it, you can still like see what's going on. So I like my smoker
Yeah.
because
You can
there
see the action happening.
there's a sliver at some point where I'm able to look in and like, is this doing what I want it to do? And that makes me happy. I
Yeah.
I I have to buy them again because I let the like brain of this console die. It got wet. But I had like a meat thermometer, like a Bluetooth meat thermometer that I could set like the temperature to that I needed it to get to. And so that allowed me to walk away and feel more comfortable. Um, but I definitely am like watching it. Like I'm the same way when I'm cooking eggs. Like I'm just like there, like and stir.
Eggs is
Like this is
one
for
thing
fucking
that
scrambled
comes.
eggs.
So
Um,
scrambled eggs happen so fast that I'm good with scrambled eggs.
See,
But
but I do it at a lower heat? Oh, and that would be the other question I guess I got for you too. Are you a
I do tend to high heat things, yes.
I tend to low heat. I tend to like obviously I tend to low heat. We talked about the whole grilling situation. Uh,
I do tend to high heat, and then sometimes I do have like a timing issue with throwing things in a little too early,
okay.
into the pan. So
Because you
it's
want to
kind
hear
of
that
like a,
sizzle.
yeah,
You want
it's
to hear it
like,
scream. Thanks, Chef
yeah, like
Mike.
I know when I need to do it, and sometimes like the impatience sets in and I just do it. I'm like, damn, I screwed that up.
Oh my god. Some of the biggest like not arguments, but disagreements in the kitchen, I guess, with Hannah sometimes were when we first got together was her throwing it in as she's preheating the oven. I'm just like, well,
No,
it hasn't hit the right temperature yet. And so that just is gonna fuck the whole timing up. I don't know how to calculate this incremental increase of heat to finally hit the temperature that was supposed to be in for this amount. And I was like, so it's not supposed to be in for that amount anymore, but it's not a even exchange of where it should. It needs to come out sooner, but like not much sooner.
yeah, and then you need a degree in thermodynamics to figure out how to remove this roast from the oven. Yeah,
Yeah, that one got me for a little bit, and so I'm very much of the mind that like, nope, this will go in when that oven goes beep 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 beep.
that's pretty standard.
So I'm definitely though I'm an under heat in one element, but not a. If I can clearly see where this temperature is supposed to be and like control it, it's different, you know. I
Yeah.
I want to be able to control that. Then. What is your weakest? Yeah. What is your weakest item? Like what is the thing that you just no matter how hard you try can't cook right? For instance, I can't fucking do pancakes.
I've never tried pancakes. I would screw them up royally, though. I know I would. Um, for me, I feel like I can never quite get lentils correct, which is ironic.
It was funny. You said this before you started the show. You're just like trying to get these lentils done, and I was like, ambitious.
It is ambitious, and they're still sitting there waiting to be completely finished, actually. So I do need to complete dinner soon. Uh, as you might have realized by my text about lentils. But for some reason, there's a point where lentils go from they're still hard to it's mush.
Yeah.
And for me, I just can't, like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a liquid to ratio situation. I've changed the ratio before. I just can't figure it out.
Hmm.
So I'm now this is attempt number N plus 100 on trying to because like I can make lentils enough. They're gonna be edible. It's not
Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
gonna taste, but like texturally, I've had good lentils, and I've not been able to texturally recreate that.
Okay.
And so I'm also like the person who's like I know I think we're opposites in the sense that like it's not often that I'm trying to create something in the kitchen with any type of I do it for utility more than anything most of the time. So
Right.
I do think that's also like a difference too, where it's just like I just need to get something in my stomach right now. And
So
I'm gonna make it taste good enough, but like doing the textures or going the extra mile, it's like I don't like the process enough of cooking most times to want to get to that point.
so what you're saying
Which
is
is
like
in the situation that I'm in right now.
you don't like sit there the night before and think about like okay I'm gonna make Hannah
No,
breakfast in the morning and
not at all.
you know what we don't have the perfect ingredients for an eggs Benedict, but what we do have in terms of leftovers and everything like that would make an adequate eggs Benedict. So I just
Nope.
got to figure out how to make the hollandaise in the morning. Okay, I think I can do. This isn't the process you go
This
through.
is not the process. This is I'm in the kitchen right now. Okay, now what? That's step
And
one.
it's like, why are
I
you on
still
your phone? Like,
step into
what are you
the
looking at? I'm like, I think I got breakfast in the morning.
no, yeah, no, yeah. Me, it's just like I stepped into the apartment. I got home today and I was like, okay, we just had quinoa last night. Not gonna redo quinoa. We're gonna have rice soon. Don't feel like doing rice. Lentils are the other thing in there. We're doing lentils.
So my thought process was, I went downstairs, I looked in the fridge, I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing chicken tonight. That's fine. I have these chicken breasts. And then all day I was like, okay, well I'll do just like a power bowl or something, like brown rice, chicken. Maybe I'll bring out some corn, have a lime. I'll just throw some salad on that, and we'll be good. And I was thinking about it more. I was like, I still want chicken and brown rice, but you know what? I think I still have some tortillas left. And if I can, I think I'll just do like a quick little like chicken burrito rice thingy. Like let's just go with that. And that's what I thought about most of the day. Was this very
See,
quick like but like filling meal that I think I can get done by the time I get home to the time this
yeah.
podcast had to start.
Yeah. See, I didn't have that time. Plus, I also am not you. So that whole thought was happening throughout the day versus when I stepped in the door at six, whatever, like quarter after six. So as you can see, I'm still behind.
All right, I won't hold you up too much longer then. But I guess the last question before bringing it into why I was happy about this food misadventures conversation, the last question would be if there was one thing that you could cook, like given all the time and knowledge, maybe not knowledge, but like if you had a full weekend, open budget, and it wasn't restricted to the tools that you have to work with in your own kitchen, which I have to imagine are pretty adequate. Uh,
They're great.
yeah, exactly. Um, if there was one thing that you could make from scratch,
Mm.
just because it's something that you enjoy and would love to be able to do it yourself, what is it?
Is this something I would have made before, or just anything that I enjoy that I would want to make from scratch?
Anything that you enjoy that you wish that, damn, I wish I could do this. Um,
But
I knew
that
it.
was my
I'm not too far off from that, but yes,
Are you gonna say ramen?
I'm gonna say ramen.
Because that'd be number two on my list is like
And
pho and ramen. If I could
so
just make like a good broth,
yeah, mine goes ramen pho. Now,
yeah,
what is
I 100% agree.
what is one thing that you are confident that you could make well without like a real like recipe behind it?
Without a real recipe behind it,
Yeah,
I
you
can
just
make.
go into a kitchen. If you had all of the right ingredients that you like, you knew you needed these things. What could you make well?
Oh, good question. I feel like I could pull off a pasta maybe. I would definitely say any type of like, yeah, like a rice bowl type deal, something like that. I could pull off. Uh, I'm not big on making specific dishes as much as I'm just making sure there's a variety of ingredients in the dishes. So making sure there's a plethora of vegetables, making sure there's a good meat, making sure there's starch.
There you
So
go. My
there's that.
answer is I am fairly confident without looking at any recipe, I can make a banging chili,
Mm, okay. Yeah.
which technically is really just I have a bunch of ingredients. Let's make sure they go well together.
Yeah.
Uh, but chili something I really enjoy because I it was something my mom did very well, and I think her real big secret is the not just utilizing one type of the beef, right? Like she usually makes like a beef chili, um, but it's usually like a chuck roast, like something that she can cube
Mm,
up, as
yeah.
well as ground beef.
So you get like that depth and they get the texture.
Right. So I usually like to really like slow cook or like crock pot the chuck so that it's almost like that falling apart, almost like brisket esque type of like texture, that like rib like fall off the bone like element to
Yeah.
it. So doing something that's like braised almost,
That with a chili sounds great.
and then having the ground beef, but then having like a really I like I'm not too tomato based. Like obviously, like there's like the tomato element of the sauce and everything like that. But I love a deep like I guess what maybe umami like the I there needs to be some vinegar, but also some like Worcestershire like that type of like
Yeah, a little tang.
that tang out of it.
Yeah.
That and also that acidity like really
Hmm.
has to hit well. The beans need to be a specific texture, too hard and it's off putting, too soft and it's just mushy, right? Having that like that perfect bean element, so
Yeah.
knowing when to get that into the sauce at the right time. It's a really interesting and fun process, and that's a dish that could be done very quickly that takes me all day.
But you know what? An all-day chili's worth it, I think. That's one of those things where it's like you do it all day, it gets done, and it's like it's the thing.
So why I this is the beer question and we're done.
Okay.
Why do I find this conversation so interesting and so appropriate for how it relates to craft beer?
Oh, that was the question.
That was
I
the
thought you were
question.
prefacing
No, no, no. Why?
why.
Yeah.
Because I think it comes back to like creating beer, maybe in the sense that it's like, what are your strengths as a brewer? What are your weaknesses as a brewer? What are the things that you feel like you could translate into brewing a recipe? And what are like, how are you a brewer, right? Like, let's develop a recipe. Here's the recipe. Let's follow that recipe. Or is it just kind of like on a whim? Hey, let's just try something here. We have enough knowledge base to understand we need this amount of grain and this type of grain to get this flavor or impart this texture, this body. Let's do it. And then it's just like the love of like you just talked about chili. I You really love a chili. That's something you're really going to take the details into and really craft something well. Where it's like the same thing, like a Marzen, for example, or Pilsner for us is like, okay, we're gonna set out to do that. Okay, well now we're really gonna make sure that gets done and done justice.
Yeah, I think it's all of that. I think what I find so interesting about cooking, I think mm, cooking, I feel like you have a lot more liberty, right? With what you can do at any given time, and that's only in regard to like baking. I feel like baking is like that like scientific like element where like you need to do these certain things to a very specific like measurement for them to turn out right, and that might just be ignorance. Um, but I think the love and the art of cooking and the love and the art of beer are so very interesting because I think you have to have a nice balance of both, of that meticulous like by the book, let's follow this so that we can have this consistent thing, but that also willingness to break outside of it and really like push the boundaries. So I think it takes both versions. I think it takes by the book, and I think it takes the willingness and the imagination to see it as something else in order to do well. and we align on a lot, and but we also have very differing ways to get to the same thing a lot of the times. And I think that's what I'm very interested in when it comes down to us actually brewing together. Which actually, besides the collaboration, which was someone else telling us what to do, we haven't had any real experience of doing something together yet, which is something that we're outfitting for the summer. And
Yeah.
I'm very, very interested because, even talking with Hannah a lot about it, she'll bring up like different questions. And I think because of her working in like pharmaceuticals, like she has like really good questions that when she brings them up, they're very particular moments that I remember from brewing with Love City that I was like, see, I know what you're asking, and this was a moment where I looked at Chris and I said, "This is you," because it was
Yes.
something that like I knew you would probably have a better grasp around, and that I was willing and I have the want to learn it, but I just knew it was going to be too difficult for me at the time. And it is going to be something I'm going to have to work harder to understand. And I think having that understanding of strengths, weaknesses, places that we are willing to have leeway and have creativity with, and then places that we're also not willing to budge on. For instance, we talked about it kind of with the preheating of the oven, right? We're both unwilling to set the preheat and throw the thing in right away, and I think that's something that's good to understand because I just think, having clear cut, this is what I'm willing to do, this is not what I'm willing to do, uh,
Yeah.
kind of makes the journey a little easier to understand and just
I
a
agree.
little,
Yes.
easier to work together if those things are like clear cut in the beginning. But the other side of why I was really excited to have this conversation was Roger Federer had a really good Instagram post, or I don't know if it was him in particular, but he was quoted. It was ATP Tour and Wimbledon had a bunch of quotes from him. And I'm just going to say them now because it's something that I try to instill in a lot of the kids that I used to work with. Um,
Okay.
and one of the biggest things that I learned about when it came to creativity when I was working in advertising, right, was that it was failing, right? Failing being a very key, important step to learning, and especially when you're in a rut in your particular field, going into something that you're unfamiliar with and just failing. And I would have to say, cooking is not either of our fields, and so
No.
it's good to fail. But he said, when you're playing a point, it has to be the most important thing in the world, and it is. But when it's behind you, it's behind you. The mindset is really crucial because it frees you to fully commit to the next point and the next one after that with intensity, clarity, and focus. The truth is, whatever game you play in life, sometimes you're going to lose, and it's natural when you're down to doubt yourself, to feel sorry for yourself. But negative energy is wasted energy. You want to become a master at overcoming hard moments. That is to me the sign of a champion. The best in the world are not the best because they win every point. It's because they know they'll lose again and again and have learned how to deal with it. You accept it, cry it out if you need to, then force a smile. You move on, be relentless, adapt and grow. Work harder, work smarter. Remember, work smarter. And if there's anything that felt like a real kick in the ass to like just go for this, it was one of the greatest at tennis just to be like, do whatever it takes.
I like that. And to wrap up my thoughts on that is like, I think now just let's go into this home brewing together thing and just create whatever it's going to be, and whatever it comes out to be is what it is. And that's going to be an opportunity for us to get it right the next time or tweak it the next time. And in that way, you know, or we did something wrong, or we were clashing on something, now we can do it right the next time. So that kind of just gives me like the, yeah, like let's
Fucking do it.
let's just get it done. Like just do something and go from there. It's a base to start off.
Yeah. So as I said, next weekend I'm heading out for like a week and a half, and then I'm gonna try to time it out to get some of the final pieces of equipment in, and then
Right?
we will look for those ingredients, and we'll just fucking go,
Let's go. Let's
bro.
bro.
Let's brew, bro.
Now, those are already those guys already exist. We can't.
I thought they were Smash Bros.
And on that note, folks,
Peace.
now we have negative people in the comments. In the comments,
All right. Until next time. Peace.
peace.